uncovering the Russian stooges in America. This investigation into Rudy Giuliani looks like it's going a whole lot deeper than we thought. And not just, I say Russian stooges. What I really should be saying is, former Soviet Republic oligarch stooges, because it looks like Rudy Giuliani was actually working for a billionaire in Ukraine. So we'll get into that in the third hour. And also this whole debate about whether Joe Biden should require the entire military to get vaccinated. I want to get into that as well. And we can talk about that too. Actually, we can get into that in our second hour here as I'm scrolling through my one sheet. But I want to start with this Trump Derangement Syndrome. Yesterday, Rudy Giuliani, they executed search warrants on Rudy Giuliani's home and his Park Avenue office. And they took his laptop and his iPhone and his iPad and all this kind of stuff. And his lawyer came out and they said, why are they doing this? And he says, they're suffering from Trump Derangement Syndrome. And I'm sitting here going, yeah. Me too. There's a lot of us who are suffering from Trump Derangement Syndrome. And by the way, it's normal. Now, of course, I'm using that phrase, which has no actual medical or legal meaning, to be both, I was going to say hyperbolic, but I'm really not exaggerating. But, for effect, shall we say. And also, ironically, but follow my logic here. I would say that Trump Derangement Syndrome is actually a sign of good and normal mental health. It means that your psychological alert system is working. It means that your psychological and emotional defense systems are working. For example, in the neighborhood where I live in the northern part of Portland, we have an arsonist in our neighborhood. He has set on fire the outdoor furniture that people have next to their houses, a couple of them, and nearly lit up a house. Best guess is he's not actually trying to burn down somebody's houses. He's just liking to set fires. But hey, there's an arsonist in our neighborhood, and then there's a thief in the neighborhood. He has broken into several houses, including one where the people were home, and stolen, laptops and computers and things. And Sunday, I was sitting here working, and I can see out my window down the street that I live on. And suddenly this truck comes peeling out of one of my neighbor's driveways and just screaming down, screaming rubber, leaving rubber on the road, screaming down this 15-mile-an-hour residential road at must have been 60 miles an hour. Turns out it was this burglar guy, and he's apparently graduated from stealing computers to stealing cars. So at the moment, and by the way, this isn't just unique to Portland. This is happening all over America right now. We've got 40 years of Reaganomics, which have gutted the middle class. You've got a serious mental health crisis going on, and it is particularly critical in many of the homeless communities. Some of them seem to be running more like, little communities. Others seem to have been taken over by, basically the mentally ill. And this guy appears to be associated with one of the nearby homeless communities. We should be doing something about this. And I'm not talking about, bringing in the police and the army. I'm talking about, providing services to people. But, Ronald Reagan broke that entire system, and nobody has fixed it. And so, like I said, this isn't just Portland. This is happening. These kinds of, quote, small crimes are happening in towns all over the country. And so, my neighbors and I, we're all feeling a little deranged. We've got arsonist and burglar derangement syndrome, and we're talking to each other in email and, catching up with the police, and people are upgrading their security systems and stuff like that. So, in that same vein, it shouldn't surprise anybody that millions of Americans don't feel safe and do continue to feel deranged and won't feel safe until Donald Trump and his authoritarian, democracy-hating, white supremacist, gun fetishist followers no longer play any kind of meaningful role on the American political scene, and his criminal buddies, including the rest of his crime family, have been held to account. I mean, just consider what I mentioned the arsonist here. Just consider what Trump has done. I mean, he knew back in January how deadly this virus was. He told Bob Woodward all about it. I'm talking about a year ago, January. And he did nothing. He refused to use the Defense Production Act even to get masks and gowns to people working in hospitals, for God's sake. The only thing he used it for was to force black and brown people back into meatpacking plants where they were dropping like flies from COVID. Oh, as a result of Trump's incompetence and malice, 500,000 Americans are dead. That means that there's several million American families who are suffering, who are feeling a little deranged right now. People who've lost parents and siblings and grandparents and children and neighbors and loved ones. When he could have stopped this disease, just like Australia stopped it, Taiwan stopped it, South Korea stopped it, he could have done it. He nearly started a nuclear war with North Korea, and then went over there to kiss Kim Jong-un's ass a couple of times. He sucked up to the butcher of Saudi Arabia and bragged that he had saved MBS's ass. Using that word twice there, I guess over the top here, but you get it. He insisted that America's own intelligence agencies were lying, and that Russia and other countries that were helping him get elected and were friendly to him were actually telling the truth. They could do no wrong. He and his family have been expropriating money, taking money from pretty much anything that moves, from the inaugural committee right straight on through. We're now discovering massive overpayments to Trump properties around the world. He treated the emolument clause, which is a core part of our Constitution, like a joke. He conned his followers out of hundreds of millions of dollars and is continuing to con them with his election fraud big lie. He surrounded himself with actual criminals, actual traitors, ne'er-do-wells, and outright grifters. His guide to joy is still bent on destroying the post office, which Trump thought was going to help him win the election. Now it's, hey, let's privatize it and make some big bucks for our GOP donors. He tried to destroy Obamacare. He threw 2 million people off health care. He tried to destroy Medicaid and Medicare. He tore children from their parents.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And several of them died. He's cranked up anti-white hate to the point that Asian Americans, elderly Asians, are getting... Is it any surprise we're suffering Trump Derangement Syndrome?